Adrien Blackwood was the kind of man whose name could move markets before sunrise. On the covers of glossy magazines, he was always the same, polished jawline, midnight suits, surrounded by other untouchable figures of wealth and power. The world knew him as the stoic architect of a financial empire, a man too focused, too cold, too unbending to be distracted by something as trivial as love. He was supposed to be single, married only to his ambition. And he played that role perfectly. Every event, every headline, every investor dinner painted the same image: Adrien Blackwood, billionaire, untethered. Eligible. For the media, it was convenient speculation. For his competitors, it was an opening. For elegant women in jeweled gowns, it was a fantasy. They circled around him during banquets like moths drawn hopelessly to fire, striking smiles, fluttering lashes, tilting champagne glasses toward him in delicate choreography. Adrien never indulged. He offered polite smiles, courteous nods, but nothing beyond that. His heart, the world assumed, was locked away with the key thrown into some unreachable ocean. They were wrong. Because in a quiet townhouse tucked away on an unassuming street where no cameras lurked, no whispers reached, and no investors prowled, Adrien Blackwood's heart belonged to a woman the world had no idea existed. Her name was Eleanor. She stood barefoot in their small kitchen that morning, folding pastry dough with flour dusting her hands, the sleeves of her simple blouse rolled just to her elbows. The house smelled faintly of vanilla, warmth rising against the pale winter light. This was the version of Adrien no reporter had ever seen. No silk tie, no marble office, no army of assistants. Just a man leaning on the counter in casual clothes, watching his wife move as though every inch of the world narrowed down to her. "Stop staring," Eleanor murmured without glancing up. "I'm memorizing," Adrien replied, voice smooth but softer than the one that usually silenced boardrooms. Her lips curved faintly, but she didn't argue. They danced this dialogue 100 times, and still it stole air from the room in ways no billion-dollar negotiation ever could. In this world, their world, Eleanor was his anchor. Not a socialite. Not an heiress. Just herself. She carried no illusions about his wealth, no ambitions to build empires beside him, only the kind of loyalty born from roots that reached deeper than the glittering surface of his life. And yet, they were a secret. Eleanor had known, the moment Adrien asked her to marry him, that their life together would not shine in the open light of society. His enemies were too many, too watchful, too ruthless. A rival with enough cruelty would have no qualms about targeting her if they knew. So they decided, hidden was safer. She would be his kept sanctuary, his refuge, his truth, but never his headline. Most days Eleanor accepted this. After all, she had never craved society halls, never lusted for crystal chandeliers and hushed applause. What she wanted was right here. His fingers brushing her jaw when he kissed her, the warmth of his laugh when she teased him, the weight of his presence when night fell quiet. But sometimes, when she caught her reflection in the dark window of a passing town car he rode back to his marble fortress, she wondered if she existed only in the shadows of someone else's life. That afternoon, Adrien stood in front of her while she served him coffee at their secluded dining table. "Paris next week," he said. "The energy division's new contract." She nodded, taking the seat opposite him. Travel was constant, it always had been. Adrien's empire stretched across continents, and if he wasn't in Hong Kong for a merger, he was in Dubai finalizing oil negotiations. She was used to it, used to listening to his updates like notes from a world that would never include her. "How long?" she asked. "A week," he said. Then softer, "Too long." His eyes lingered on her like the city lights he could never quite leave. She smiled sadly. "You'll survive." "Barely," he countered. But beneath the playful veneer was tension she could feel more often these days. Rumors gnawed at the edges of his empire. Competitors scented weakness he would never admit. And Olivia Marquette, an heiress with teeth hidden behind her perfect smile, had made her interest in him public, sowing whispers through the financial world. The fact that he ignored her advances only made the intrigue sharper. Eleanor knew there would come a day when the public wanted answers about Adrien's private life. And secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, had sharp edges. That evening, when he prepared to leave for a dinner with government officials, Adrien paused in the narrow front hallway of their hidden home. His tie was already straightened, his cufflinks centered, but she reached up to brush an unseen wrinkle from his collar anyway. He caught her hand, kissed the palm, then pressed his forehead to hers. "How long can we live like this?" Eleanor whispered. "As long as we must," he said without hesitation. Her eyes glistened. "And if someone finds out?" His expression hardened with quiet fire. "Then let them. I won't deny you." She wanted to believe him. Wanted desperately to let those words wrap her heart in safety. But she knew the cost of publicity. For him, it might be scandal. Bankruptcy. For her, it might be worse. Hatred, ridicule, a target strapped to her back for daring to be loved by a man who belonged to the powerful. That night, while he was gone, she curled on the couch with a blanket and scrolled headlines on her phone. There he was, Adrien Blackwood arriving at the gala, women clustered around like an orbit of stars, his smile faint but practiced. The headline, "The world's most eligible bachelor still unclaimed." The word stabbed oddly into her chest. Secret wife. Hidden truth. Nobody knew. Nobody could. The comments beneath the article speculated on which socialite he might finally marry. Eleanor turned the phone screen off abruptly, the reflection of her face ghosting back at her like a question she didn't know how to answer. When he arrived home past midnight, she pretended to be asleep. He slipped into bed quietly, his arm wrapping around her waist, his lips brushing the slope of her neck. But she stayed still, holding her breath, afraid that if she exhaled, the lie of their secrecy would shatter between them. And in the stillness, while the billionaire slept peacefully beside her, Eleanor's heart whispered the fear she could never say aloud. One day someone would discover her. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same again. It began with a photograph. At first, Eleanor thought nothing of it. Just another tabloid image of Adrien striding into a glass skyscraper, his security detail flanking him like shadows, his expression unreadable as ever. But then her eyes caught the detail no one else seemed to notice. The corner of the image revealed her reflection, faint, blurred, only half a profile, caught in the tinted window of the waiting car. She felt icy tremors radiate down her spine. To the tabloids it meant little. A misplaced staff member, perhaps, or an assistant caught mid-stride. But to Eleanor, it was proof that their carefully woven secrecy wasn't as impenetrable as she had believed. All it took was one sharper camera, one hungrier journalist, and the illusion would crumble. That evening, when Adrien finally returned home, she met him at the door with the folded newspaper in her trembling hands. "They caught me." His eyes flicked down at the photo before returning to her with calm certainty. "No. They caught a blur. It could be anyone. But it's me." Her voice wavered. "I saw the way that driver looked at me as we pulled away. What if he talks? What if someone looks closer?" Adrien took the newspaper from her and set it aside with deliberate calm, then cupped her face in his hands. "If they look closer, then they'll finally see. And when they do, I won't hide you." Her breath stalled. He said it so easily, as though speaking truth into existence was enough to make it safe. But Eleanor knew it wasn't. Secrets weren't just broken, they were devoured. Later that week she sensed the shift. Small things at first. A voice that lingered too long on the other end of a phone call, the sharp glitter in Olivia Marquette's eyes when she brushed by Adrien at a function, the reporters who pressed harder with their questions. Rumors sprouted. Had Adrien already chosen someone in private? Was he hiding a mistress? No name yet, no face, but the air around him thickened with speculation. One night, Eleanor overheard one of Adrien's senior advisors speak carelessly outside his office. "This distraction cannot continue. Investors are already restless. If he insists on this nonsense, he'll burn everything we've built." The words lodged like splinters in her chest. Distraction. Nonsense. Was that what she was? When Adrien emerged from the office, tension in his shoulders, she confronted him in their private kitchen. "They're blaming me." "They don't even know you exist," Adrien countered. Her eyes shimmered with indignation. "That doesn't stop them from knowing something." He reached for her, voice low, soothing. "Let me worry about them." "No, Adrien." She pulled back, trembling. "This isn't just your life. It's mine. You might thrive in open combat, but I don't. I never asked to be hidden, but I also never asked to be a scandal waiting to happen." His gaze softened, but behind it flickered the steel that made him who he was. "Eleanor, you are not a scandal. You are the only part of my life untouched by corruption, and I will not let them twist that." Do you understand? She closed her eyes. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to wrap those words around her like armor. But doubt still gnawed relentlessly. The following Saturday their hidden world collided more violently. Adrien had promised her a quiet afternoon outside the city, a drive to the coast, just the two of them, a chance to breathe as husband and wife without walls pressing on their secret. Eleanor had smiled at the idea, clinging to the promise of fresh air and sea wind. But halfway through the drive, when they stopped briefly at a roadside cafe, she realized something was wrong. A man at the counter lifted his phone just a second too long in their direction, lens glinting beneath the fluorescent lights. Eleanor's throat constricted. She grabbed Adrien's arm urgently. He's taking pictures. Without hesitation, Adrien took her hand and guided her calmly back outside. His composure didn't crack, not even as she trembled beside him. He opened the car door for her, slid inside and gave the driver a curt nod. The car pulled away in silence. "I told you," Eleanor whispered fiercely once they were safe behind tinted glass. "They're watching. They'll find me." Adrien turned to her, calm as a still sea before a storm. "Then let them." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "How can you say that? You've spent years building walls, controlling every angle. Now you'll just let it fall apart?" His voice lowered, intimate but unyielding. "I've given this world everything it demands, night after night of shallow dinners, cold alliances, empty rituals of power. But I will not sacrifice you to keep it fed. If the truth surfaces, so be it. Better they know you are my wife than continue whispering about ghosts." The word struck her like a blow. Wife. She was his, legally, intimately, in every way that mattered, yet never acknowledged beyond the walls of their hidden home. Tears burned and slipped despite her will. "Do you know what they'll say? That I'm not worthy, that I tricked you, that I'm weakness made flesh." "They will say many things," Adrien said calmly. "But the only truth is that I chose you. And when I speak it aloud, no one will dare call it otherwise." She shook her head, overwhelmed. "You're naive to think your empire won't suffer." His lips curved faintly, not cruelty but conviction. "Then let it. Empires can be rebuilt. I won't trade you for survival." Her sob burst before she could stop it. Adrien's arms wrapped around her fiercely, his breath warm at her temple. "Eleanor, no storm, no rival, no headline will erase who you are to me. Their ignorance doesn't define us. Do you hear me? It never has." She clutched his shirt, heart aching with both love and terror. For the first time, she realized Adrien wasn't fighting to keep the secret anymore. He was preparing to break it open himself. That night, lying awake beside him, Eleanor stared at the ceiling while his breathing slowed in sleep. She touched the band of gold on her finger, the band no reporter had ever seen, the band that tethered her to a man the rest of the world thought untethered. And she couldn't decide if she was living inside a miracle or standing on the edge of disaster. By Monday morning, the whispers had evolved into something sharper. Gossip blogs were no longer speculating whether Adrien Blackwood had a hidden relationship. They were insisting. Theories poured across headlines like wildfire. Who is the mystery woman keeping the billionaire distracted? And Blackwood hiding more than his profits? The articles didn't have photos beyond the blurry cafe snapshot. Still, it was enough. Enough for people to latch onto the smell of blood and water. Isabella. No, Eleanor reminded herself. She couldn't think of herself as someone else, stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. She still looked ordinary. No designer dresses, hair pinned loosely, dark circles under her eyes from restless nights. She tried to imagine how the world would spin if it saw her like this. Not glamorous, not powerful, just Eleanor Blackwood, the wife they didn't know existed. It terrified her. Later that afternoon, Adrien came back briefly from his office tower to meet her for lunch in their private home. He sat at the dining table, removing his jacket, loosening his tie. Even half undone, he carried the air of someone who commanded the earth to rotate by will. "They're getting closer," Eleanor said quietly, sliding a plate toward him. "They're guessing," Adrien replied with calm finality. "Guessing has no teeth." "Until it does," she countered. His gaze softened, almost apologetic. "Eleanor, you knew this world feeds on speculation, not truth. As long as they don't have proof, the noise dies. Trust me. Trust." The word echoed between them like fragile crystal. She wanted to believe. She wanted to sink into his conviction as she always had. But cracks were appearing in their carefully walled sanctuary, and there was no patch strong enough to hold forever. That evening the crack deepened. Eleanor stayed awake again, scrolling through gossip forums on her phone. She shouldn't have looked, she knew that. But the words drove nails into her chest regardless. She's probably some model he keeps hidden. Why else is he never seen with anyone? Everyone knows a man like that doesn't stay single. I heard from a source at the office, the girl's ordinary. Can you imagine? A billionaire hiding a nobody? Her fingers trembled as she shut the screen off, fury and shame burning together. Ordinary. Invisible. Weakness. Was that all she was? The next day, Adrien asked her to join him at the townhouse study. He rarely called her into this space because it mirrored too much of his world outside: dark oak walls, globe bar cart in the corner, tall back chairs that seemed too large for any one mortal. He gestured for her to sit. I have to fly to Geneva tomorrow, he said. Negotiations. 2 days. She nodded, bracing herself for another stretch of loneliness. But then his hand reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. I need you to know something before I go. You're not invisible to me. Not here. Not anywhere. No matter what stories people invent. Her throat tightened unexpectedly, tears threatening behind her lashes. She whispered, but to the world I don't exist. His jaw stiffened. Perhaps that needs to change. Her head snapped up. Adrien? I've thought about this long before, he admitted, voice low and deliberate. At first, secrecy was protection. But protection has become prison. Maybe it's time I end both. The air thickened. Eleanor couldn't even breathe. If you expose me, they'll devour me alive. Then I'll hold the line, he said swiftly. I've held it for empires. I can hold it for my wife. Her lips parted, but words failed her. The mixture of dread and awe that consumed her left her trembling. Adrien leaned back slightly, but his eyes never wavered. Decide if you're ready, Eleanor. Because I am. The following night, at his Geneva conference, Olivia Marquette made her move. She had always lingered in his orbit, her heiress smile honed into blade-like charm. When Adrien met with delegates, Olivia slid effortlessly into the reception, dazzling gowns catching chandeliers, her laughter slipping between conversations like silk. People wondered why she persisted when he never indulged. To her, the answer was simple. Sooner or later, power bends to persistence. So elusive, Adrien, Olivia murmured when she cornered him near the balcony. Always so careful. But empires crumble when leaders have distractions. His eyes sharpened. Careful, Olivia. Oh, don't bristle. Everyone sees it. Your attention shifts. Rumors bloom. Her hand ghosted along his sleeve. They say you're protecting someone. Care to confirm? Adrien's expression chilled into stone. Step back. Her smile sharpened, satisfaction glittering. So it's true. That was all she needed, confirmation in silence. And Olivia knew exactly how to drip poison into the world that starved for scandal. When Adrien landed back in the city days later, the gossip storm had worsened. Eleanor stood at the kitchen counter, phone clutched in her hand, staring at a headline plastered everywhere. Blackwood's hidden lover? Sources point to ordinary woman. No name yet. No face. But the noose was tightening. When Adrien came through the door, she shoved the phone toward him, her voice breaking. Do you see what they're saying? He took the phone, his thumb swiping calmly across the screen. His expression stayed unreadable, but his words carried weight like stone. I see. And they know nothing. But they will, Eleanor cried. Olivia knows. She suspects. She'll feed them until they're right. His hands gripped her shoulders firmly, grounding her trembling frame. Then let her. When the moment comes, I will not let her define our truth. Only we can do that. She searched his face desperately, half pleading, half furious. You make it sound so simple. It is simple, he said quietly, though fire burned in his eyes. You are my wife. That's the truth. Everything else is noise. Her heart ached as tears slipped freely then. She clung to him, burying her face against his chest, terrified but unable to deny the strength in his words. Outside the sanctuary of their home, the storm raged. Reporters circled. Olivia whispered. Rivals sharpened their teeth. Inside, Eleanor realized that hiding might no longer be a choice. The secret wife nobody knew about was about to become the secret the whole world wanted to uncover. Eleanor had always been adept at disappearing. For years, it had been a necessity, a skill sharpened until it felt second nature. She could be in a room and remain unseen, the quiet hum of her life cloaked by Adrien's empire. But no matter how soft her footsteps or how quiet her breath, she was learning something new. You couldn't disappear when the world was already hunting you. The week after Adrien's return from Geneva, her every fear began crawling into the light. It started with two reporters crouched outside the townhouse, pretending to loiter as neighbors. Eleanor spotted them while taking out the trash. The way they angled their phones told her everything. She slammed the bin down too hard, darted back inside and bolted the lock. Adrien returned later that evening to find her seated rigidly at the window, blinds half drawn, hands clenched in her lap. "They've found us," she whispered. He approached, calm as ever, though the muscle in his jaw flexed. He peeked through the blinds, expression tightening when he confirmed her suspicion. "They're closer than I anticipated." Tears pricked hot against her lashes. "What do we do, Adrien?" "They'll keep digging. They'll find this place. They'll find me." His eyes met hers, fire flashing beneath the controlled surface. "Then let them. I'm done giving shadows more power than the sun." Her breath caught. "You mean to expose us?" "I mean to tell our truth before they decide it for us," he replied. "I won't let gossip define my wife." Her palms went cold. Hearing him say wife always sent warmth through her chest, but this time the word carried weight like iron. "If you do this, we'll be devoured." "If I don't," he said pointedly, "they'll devour us anyway." The argument haunted her that night. She lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling while his breathing slowed into untroubled rhythm. Secrets had been their shield, but now those same walls felt like a prison collapsing inward. The next morning, the situation escalated further. A new headline spread across media like wildfire: Blackwood family crisis. Is a marriage hidden in the shadows? This time, the article brimmed with speculation sharpened by Olivia's hand. No name, still, but details too sharp to ignore. Descriptions of a brunette woman seen at a coastal cafe, sightings of Adrien's car lingering in a quiet residential street, the observation that he consistently left high-profile events at suspiciously similar hours. Eleanor's chest froze at each word. The truth was unraveling strand by strand. By noon, the pressure spread inside the mansion itself. In the gallery, she overheard two advisors speak with sharp urgency. "If this breaks, investors retreat. He's reckless, tying himself to someone ordinary." The word struck her again, venomous as ever. Ordinary. She clenched her fists until her nails bit her palms, retreating into solitude before her face betrayed her. That evening, Adrien returned earlier than expected, pulse electric with intensity. He found her in the kitchen, sitting with trembling hands around a cup of untouched tea. "They're narrowing in," he said, voice heavy. "The next story will mention your name if I don't get ahead of it." Her throat constricted. Every word felt like a noose tightening. "Then maybe," her voice cracked. "Maybe we stop. Maybe I leave before you lose everything." In an instant, his glare cut through her words, sharp, commanding. "No. You are not disposable. You are not leaving." Her tears escaped despite her will. "Adrien, I don't want to destroy you. You won't." He knelt before her chair, taking her hands with steady force. "Do you hear me? You won't. The only thing that could destroy me is losing you. Let them come. Let them point fingers. I'll face every storm with you at my side." The conviction split her heart wide open. How could he speak with such certainty, when every piece of the world threatened to crush them? Yet in his eyes she saw no doubt, no hesitation. Only a vow. 2 days later, the storm erupted again. Eleanor was walking through the townhouse garden, the one place she still felt breath when suffocating walls closed in, when the voice pierced her solitude. My. Hiding so comfortably, are we?" Eleanor spun, blood rushing to her ears. Olivia Marquette stood by the gate, immaculate in a fitted black dress, sunglasses perched atop her perfect hair like a crown. "How did you find this place?" Eleanor demanded, heart pounding. Olivia's smirk curved like a knife. "Information is easy when people want to talk. Drivers, assistants, neighbors. You'd be surprised what loyalty a little cash can buy." Eleanor's chest throbbed. You shouldn't be here. On the contrary, this is exactly where I need to be. Olivia removed her glasses, letting her eyes slash through Eleanor. So it's true. The great Adrien Blackwood married his maid-turned-ghost bride. She chuckled darkly. Do you have any idea how embarrassing you've made him look? The world expects perfection, not this. Eleanor's fists trembled, rage scraping through fear. You don't know him. Or me. Olivia's lips curved crueler. I know enough. And soon so will everyone else. Secrets never last, sweetheart. Especially when there's profit in exposing them. With that, she glided away, leaving the garden colder than winter wind. That evening, Eleanor confessed everything to Adrien. His face hardened into something she rarely saw, a fury so sharp it seemed to crack the air. She came here? His voice was low but vicious. Yes. She knows. He took her trembling hands, pressing his lips briefly over her knuckles before speaking. Then she has written her own end. I will not let her dictate the story. Tomorrow I'll make the announcement myself. Her eyes widened, throat tight. You mean, tell the world? Yes. His jaw set with immovable fire. I will not let the woman I love be reduced to rumor or insult. If they must see, then they will see all of it. You, my wife, my truth. No more shadows. Her chest quaked between dread and something dangerously like relief. After years of being invisible, the idea of finally being seen terrified her, but also stirred an ache she could no longer deny. She had always been afraid of exposure. But maybe the greater fear now was never escaping secrecy at all. That night, as she lay awake in their bed, she realized the secret was already broken. The only choice left was whether they would shatter beneath its weight or rise from its ruins together. The morning air was brittle with anticipation. Adrien rose before dawn, leaving the warmth of their shared bed for the study where city lights still stained the windows with faint orange glow. Eleanor, restless, padded to the doorway, clutching her robe close. She found him seated at the desk, reviewing his speech draft with the same unshakable focus he'd once used to build empires. You're really going to do it? She whispered. He didn't look up immediately. I have to. The smooth lines of text cast a glow under the desk lamp. This has been weighing on us too long. If I stay silent, they will invent truths crueler than reality. If I speak, then at least it is my voice, not theirs. Her throat tightened. And what if it ruins you? Finally, his eyes lifted, softer for her, though blazing underneath. Then I rebuilt. As long as I don't lose you in the process, no ruin frightens me. The words shook her bones. He believed in her as the cornerstone of his life, yet for Eleanor, shadows felt safer. The idea of standing before the world, stripped of anonymity, terrified her more deeply than she dared show. She reached his desk slowly, laying her hand over his. If you do this, Adrien, you can't take it back. They'll scrutinize everything about me, my past, my family, where I came from. You know what they'll say, that I'm not fit, that I don't belong. He leaned forward, voice iron-bound. Belonging isn't granted by them. It's by us. You belong because I chose you, because you are my wife, because this life is ours to define. No one else has that power. A tear slipped down her cheek, but she nodded quietly. His certainty anchored her even as waves of dread threatened to sweep her away. By afternoon, preparations had begun. Word spread quickly through the company that Adrien Blackwood planned a personal press conference. An unprecedented move for a man who guarded his private life with fortress walls. The news set the financial world ablaze. Investors speculated, journalists circled like hawks, and staff members traded whispers heavier than ever. Eleanor remained hidden in their townhouse, watching it unfold from the glow of her laptop screen. She felt like the epicenter of an earthquake, powerless as shockwaves rippled outward. That evening, Adrien returned in person. His energy was taut, fueled by an inner fire she recognized well, the fire that made him unbreakable in negotiations. Yet tonight, beneath the armor, she sensed anxiety flickering too. I want you there, he told her, pressing his hand against hers. Her eyes widened. At the conference? Adrien, Yes. His tone softened but didn't waver. No more shadows. I want them to see you as I do. Her chest seized. The thought of cameras, headlines, flashing bulbs, her name in screaming type, was unbearable. I can't. I'll fall apart. His thumb brushed her knuckles gently, his gaze sincere. Then fall apart beside me. We'll stand together. That's all that matters. She pressed her lips tight, emotions boiling. She wanted to be strong for him, wanted to believe she could stand tall in the storm. But her silence was answer enough. He didn't push further that night, only kissed her forehead gently and murmured, "Think about it." The war arrived sooner than expected. The next day Oliva Marquette unleashed her ace. News outlets suddenly splashed exclusive leaks, documents, grainy photos, and an op-ed she allegedly supplied anonymously, alleging Adrien Blackwood had been hiding a wife. No names yet, but the implication was explosive. Not simply a mistress but a marriage deliberately concealed. The world tore apart in chaos. Why hide? Who is she? Theories poured in online, some lavish with envy, others cutting enough to draw blood. Eleanor's lungs felt crushed against her ribs as she scrolled through venom burned onto screen. She called Adrien in panic. They know. They know you're married. I know. His voice came calm, tempered like steel. I expected them to make a move. But Olivia's impatience will cost her. Adrien, they'll come after me. They'll dig everything. Then let them find you, he said with a sharp edge of defiance. Because once they do, I'll be there before them to name you as mine. And no voice will carry louder than mine. Tears pressed her throat raw. She whispered, I'm not ready. I know, he admitted. But sometimes, Eleanor, wars aren't about readiness. They're about standing ground, even shaking. She clutched the phone against her cheek, silent. That evening, reporters swarmed the townhouse. Cameras flashed against windows, voices clamored from the street, demanding answers. Eleanor hid in the back with curtains drawn, heart pounding. This was it. The life she'd built carefully in quiet corners had been ripped open, laid bare to lights that didn't soften. When Adrien arrived home through the back, escorted by security, Eleanor collapsed into his chest the moment she saw him. It's here. The secret's gone. His arms locked around her fiercely. No. The story isn't gone until we tell it. The next morning, Adrien called for the press conference. Invitations swept through financial journals, tabloids, TV outlets. The city, the world, braced for revelation. Eleanor stood in their bedroom the night before, staring down at the gown Adrien had laid carefully on the bed, a simple but elegant dress of soft navy silk. His voice behind her was steady as he said, "Wear it tomorrow. Stand with me." Her shoulders trembled as she whispered, "If I can't?" He paused, and in that soft edge of silence, his words fell like a vow. "Then I stand for both of us. But you should know, you'll never have to face them alone again." She pressed a hand to her ribs where her heart thrashed wildly. Tomorrow the storm would break in full. Tomorrow the world would finally see the billionaire's secret wife. And she didn't know if she would survive it, or if, somehow, it would set her free. The press conference loomed like a mountain too tall to climb. By dawn, journalists crowded outside the Hale Global headquarters, cameras perched like rifles, microphones thrust forward as if ready to pierce flesh. News vans lined the street, dishes pointed skyward to beam every frame across the globe. Eleanor sat rigid inside the black sedan, heart clamoring violently against her ribs. Fingers clenched her lap in white-knuckled determination. The silk of the navy gown Adrien had pressed upon her threatening to wrinkle with the force of her grip. She barely breathed as the car slowed to the curb. "They're monsters," she whispered, staring at the flashing bulbs outside. "They're people," Adrien said calmly beside her, his hand covering hers. "People who eat what they're fed. Today I decide the menu." His composure was unshakable. Dark suit crisp, tie perfectly knotted, every inch the untouchable titan the world expected. Yet his hand squeezed hers with warmth, grounding her even as chaos roared beyond tinted glass. Security opened the door. The instant Adrien stepped out, the crowd erupted. Shouts, questions, blind flashes like lightning storms. Eleanor inhaled sharply, bracing herself until his other hand extended firmly. His eyes caught hers, an unspoken choice. She exhaled and placed her hand in his. Gasps rippled through the crowd when she emerged. Flashes doubled, questions sharpened like knives hurled across distance. "Who is she? Is this the mystery woman? Are you married, Adrien?" Adrien didn't flinch. He kept her close as they crossed the marble steps into the headquarters. By the time they reached the press hall inside, her knees were jelly, but his hand at her back kept her steady. The hall was packed wall to wall with media. Lenses glared like eyes, murmurs buzzed like flies. Adrien stepped to the podium confidently. Eleanor stood just behind his shoulder, catching her own reflection faintly in one of the camera lenses. For the first time she saw herself how the world would, vulnerable, ordinary, exposed. Adrien's voice cut through the din, "Thank you all for coming. I'll make this brief." Silence hushed the crowd. Cameras clicked feverishly. "For years," Adrien said, gaze sweeping the audience, "I've allowed speculation about my private life. The world assumed I was alone, married only to my work. That assumption has suited rivals and gossip alike. But today it ends." The murmur surged. Eleanor's lungs froze. "I am not alone," he continued steadily. "I have been married for 3 years. Her name is Eleanor Blackwood. She is my wife, my partner, my truth. And if silence has made her a shadow, then I take responsibility for that. It ends here. From this moment she will no longer be hidden." Gasps split the room. Reporters practically leapt from their seats, firing questions. Why hide her? Was this a scandal? Did shareholders know? Adrien raised a hand and the noise, miraculously, stilled. His face was carved from stone. "We chose privacy, not deceit. Protection, not secrecy. The world can debate as it always does, but I will say this once. Eleanor Blackwood is not my weakness. She is my greatest strength. And that is all anyone needs to know." Flashes blinded Eleanor as Adrien turned, hand reaching for hers at the podium. For a heartbeat she hesitated, but his eyes anchored her. She stepped closer, their fingers interlacing as photographers devoured the image. Her chest trembled with terror and pride mixed in equal measure. Against every instinct, she stood beside him beneath the weight of the world. The conference closed soon after, no questions taken. Security swept them back through a side exit. Again chaos reigned outside. Reporters rushing to publish history in the making, rivals scrambling to spin narratives, Olivia's name creeping at the edges like venom. In the back of the car, Eleanor finally let the tears fall. She didn't sob. They escaped quietly, controlled, as though her spirit refused to give the vultures the satisfaction of weakness. Adrien brushed a thumb across her damp cheek, leaning closer so only she could hear. "You were perfect." "I was shaking," she whispered. "Exactly. And still you stood." His words wrapped like a bomb around her raw edges. Still dread clawed her insides. "This isn't over. They'll tear me apart now more than ever. Then we endure together," he said gently, resting his forehead against hers. The rest of the day split in halves. Outside the world burned with frenzy. News anchors dissected every second of Adrien's revelation. Opinion panels debated Eleanor's worthiness, her origins, her utter lack of pedigree. Envy dripped from socialite lips. Vitriol rose from competitors. Inside the townhouse, Eleanor sat curled on the couch, TV muted, phone discarded in fear. Samuel's words from months ago echoed in her head, "Survive versus live." She had stepped into living today, but already it felt like drowning. Adrien returned late from an emergency board session. His expression was taut but resolute. He crouched near her on the couch, slipping his hand in hers. "They wanted blood," he admitted. "Some tried to brand you as a liability. But I told them what I told the world, you're my wife, not a bargaining chip. Anyone who can't support that can leave the table." Her eyes widened. "And?" A faint smile curved his lips. "Most stayed." Hope flickered alive in her chest. "And Olivia?" "Furious," Adrien admitted. "Which means we've already won the first battle." Eleanor let out a shaky laugh. Relief trembled through her, even as exhaustion smothered her bones. Adrien kissed her temple softly. "You were seen today, Eleanor. Finally seen." That night, falling asleep beside him, she replayed the moment at the podium. The cameras, the fear, the way his hand had steadied hers. For the first time she felt less like a ghost and more like a woman rising into her own. But deep inside, she knew storms never vanish after one strike. Olivia wasn't finished. Neither were the vultures. Today had ended the secrecy. Tomorrow the real war would begin. If Eleanor thought the revelation would quiet things, she was wrong. The world didn't rest, it fed. The morning after the press conference, Tabloids screamed a single headline across every stand: "The Billionaire's Secret Wife." Her face, once invisible, now plastered across screens, papers, gossip blogs. The photo wasn't glamorous. It was the shot from the podium, eyes wide, hand in Adrien's. Vulnerable. Ordinary. And the labels cut sharp. Too plain. Not worthy. Gold digger hiding in plain sight. She didn't scroll long, her heart couldn't bear it. Even with the television muted, captions tumbled below the images like daggers. She shut it off and pressed both hands over her ears, as if noise could be blocked by sheer will. But noise bled everywhere. That afternoon she dared a brief walk to clear her head. The townhouse street, once faceless and calm, pulsed with onlookers and paparazzi. A running flash blinded her as someone shouted, "Smile for us, Mrs. Blackwood. How does it feel to be Cinderella?" Another voice pierced meaner. "What's it like stealing wealth you didn't earn?" The questions unraveled her resolve. She shoved past the cameras, hurrying back inside as shouts and laughter followed. Once the lock clicked shut behind her, she slid down the door, clutching her knees to her chest as silent sobs shook free. When Adrien arrived home that evening, exhaustion carved lines deep into his face. He found her curled in the entryway. Without a word, he pulled her up into his arms, cradling her close. "What happened?" he whispered. "They hate me," she gasped brokenly. "They'll never let me breathe." His hold tightened. "Then I'll smother their noise with my voice. Eleanor, listen to me, you are not their story to twist. You are mine." Though his certainty steadied her for the moment, it didn't erase the stain of thousands of strangers calling her undeserving. A week later, Adrien stood before his board in a closed-door session, tense enough to curdle air. Eleanor wasn't present, but she heard every contour later in whispers. Shareholders pressed, voices raised, Olivia purring her venom. "She's destroying your image," Olivia said smoothly. "Investors don't take well to sentiment. You want their loyalty? And this marriage. Quietly. Discreetly. The public will forgive one mistake if you correct it quickly." For a flicker, silence fell. Then Adrien's reply cut. "The only mistake would be listening to cowards. Eleanor stays. My marriage is not on the table." A gasp from some, a scoff from Olivia. "You would sacrifice billions for a maid?" "No," Adrien said, iron in his voice. "I will sacrifice nothing. I will keep both. If that strains your imagination, then step aside." The meeting fractured into dissent and concession, but one thing rang clear. Adrien refused to bend. When he relayed the story over dinner that night, Eleanor shook her head in disbelief, guilt pressing hard. "You can't keep fighting the entire world for me." "I'm not fighting the world," he corrected. "I'm fighting for us. That's different." Tears stung her eyes. "I wish, just for one day, I could be someone they deemed worthy." He cupped her face gently. "Worthy is something you've already proven 1,000 times in silence. Now let them choke on it in the light." But the world grew crueler. Olivia had connections that reached deeper than gossip. Soon, media outlets published fragments of Eleanor's past, grainy photographs of her ordinary childhood home, school records, even names of old neighbors who were suddenly interviewed for anecdotes. "She was no one," one headline sneered. "And now she's Mrs. Billionaire." The exposure gut-punched Eleanor. Privacy wasn't only preference now, it was ashes. With each piece of her ordinary history printed and mocked, she felt herself unraveling. One night, she sat on the townhouse balcony, blanket wrapped tightly around her frame. Adrien found her there, eyes swollen from tears she thought she'd hidden. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Yes, you can," he said simply, kneeling before her chair. "You already are." She shook her head fiercely, chin quivering. "They're picking me apart piece by piece. Soon there will be nothing left." His hand pressed gently over where her heart thudded frantically. "There will always be this. And they cannot touch it." His conviction was immovable, but insecurity throbbed deeper. She wondered if his sheer will could outmatch an army fueled by mockery. The climax of cruelty arrived 3 days later, at a high-profile gala Adrien was forced to attend. Eleanor didn't want to go, but he insisted quietly. "They'll look for you. Let them see you walk at my side." The room erupted when they entered. Flashbulbs captured every angle, whispers rose to a roar. And inevitably Olivia swept forward, her smile gleaming like a dagger. My," Olivia cooed, glass of champagne in hand. The infamous Eleanor. I can't decide if I should congratulate you or pity you. Eleanor stiffened, but Adrien's arm held strong at her back. Olivia leaned closer, voice low but sharp enough for others nearby to hear. Enjoy this while it lasts. Eventually he'll tire of protecting dead weight. And when he does, even his empire won't save you. Venom spread through air like smoke. Eleanor's breath caught, fury and pain locking her throat. Before she could respond, Adrien's voice sliced clean. Careful, Olivia. His eyes blazed toward her. One more insult to my wife, and I'll make sure every door you depend on slams shut in your face. Yes. A ripple of shock moved across the room. Olivia's expression faltered just a fraction before she painted it with mock sweetness. So protective, she murmured. It would almost be touching, if it weren't so theatrical. She drifted away, but the damage lingered. Eleanor's hands trembled as Adrien guided her deeper into the ballroom, his jaw set like stone. Later that night, when they were finally alone, Eleanor broke down against him. She's right. I'm dragging you down. He straightened her chin until her tearful eyes met his. No. You are the only one holding me up. Every word carried the strength of a vow, so heavy she could barely breathe. For the first time, she began to acknowledge what his certainty meant. Adrien didn't simply want to protect her. He needed her. The night after the gala, silence haunted the townhouse. Eleanor lay awake staring into the dark ceiling, her body still vibrating with Olivia's words. Dead weight. The insult replayed again and again until it became a cruel drumbeat in her mind. Even with Adrien sleeping beside her, arm protective around her waist, her chest throbbed with loneliness. The next morning the storm sharpened to knives. Olivia's retaliatory strike had been launched before dawn. Financial reports screamed of a leaked dossier alleging improprieties inside Hale Global, claims of misallocated funds, insider favoritism and reckless gambles. The words conflict of interest appeared like poison ink across official channels, all pointing toward one target, Adrien's personal decisions compromised by his wife. Eleanor's stomach twisted as news anchors dissected the story on every channel. This so-called fairy tale love story may be peeling back into corporate negligence. Has Adrien Blackwood risked billions protecting his bride? She turned the television off with trembling fingers, while rising in her throat. She didn't need to watch further. She already knew Olivia's cruelty was exact, deliberate, and devastating. When Adrien arrived home late that evening, the fatigue was visible in his face. His tie was undone, his shirt slightly wrinkled, rare cracks in the armor he usually wore. It's Olivia, he said before Eleanor could even ask. She staged these leaks. Fabricated, twisted, but loud enough to unsettle fragile minds. Her voice broke. All of this because of me. No, Adrien said firmly, crossing to her, gripping her shoulders. All of this because Olivia never could stand not being chosen. Don't you dare absorb her venomous truth. But Eleanor's tears slipped freely. She's right, Adrien. With me here you're bleeding. Look what you've built, everything you fought for. Why risk it all for someone like me? His jaw clenched, eyes unflinching. Because, someone like you, is the very reason it has meaning. Her sob caught in her throat, half-belief tangled with terror. He pulled her into his chest, voice muffled but fierce. Stay with me. Don't let her win by convincing you that you're the problem. The following day, Adrien made his boldest move yet. He called another press gathering, this time inside the glass atrium of Hale Global itself. Eleanor sat hidden in the crowd of staff and journalists, her heart threatening to collapse. Adrien stood beneath the towering skylight, sunlight cutting across his shoulders, his presence still commanding despite the chaos thrumming through the world around him. There have been attacks against my company, Adrien declared. Allegations fabricated from envy, spun for headlines, meant to destabilize what we've built. Cameras clicked wildly. He didn't flinch. It is no coincidence that these attacks erupted after I revealed the truth about my wife. Let me be perfectly clear. Eleanor Blackwood has done nothing but give me strength. If her presence unsettles fragile men clinging to power, that says more about them than about her. He paused, eyes cutting like fire through the crowd. If investors want another leader, call for a vote. You may strip me of this office. But understand this, I will not strip her from my life. I'll lose an empire before I lose my wife. The words ignited the room. Some gasped, some whispered furiously, others scribbled headlines with manic speed. Eleanor's heart fractured under the weight of it. He was willing to risk everything, billions, legacy, the Blackwood name, all for her. Pride wove with horror in equal measure. That night, when they were finally alone, she collapsed against him in anguish. You shouldn't risk it all. You shouldn't give so much up. His forehead pressed to hers, breath hot with conviction. Eleanor, listen. Empires mean nothing if they cost me the one thing that makes me human. If the price of keeping you is fire, then let it burn. She trembled in his arms. And if I can't survive it? His grip only tightened. Then I'll shield you until you can. The days that followed were brutal. Media fired back with cruelty sharper than ever. Commentators sneered about the maid-turned-wife. Analysts lectured about costly sentiment. Rivals plotted takeover attempts. Eleanor spent hours shut inside the townhouse, terrified to even step out for a breath of air. Hate-laced letters began arriving, pages soaked in envy and disdain. You'll ruin him. Go back to obscurity. One afternoon she broke down entirely. Alone, she collapsed to the floor of their bedroom, tears flooding as the letters scattered around her. A whisper of her deepest fear escaped. I'm not strong enough. That was how Adrien found her, shattered and trembling. He dropped to his knees, gathering her desperately, scattering papers aside with sweeping fury. Don't say that. His voice broke, rawer than she'd ever heard. You are stronger than anyone in those glass towers. Stronger than me some days. Do you know why I fight like this? Because you are the only reason the fight is worth it. She clutched him, sobbing against the heat of his chest. I don't know if I can be who you need. His arms locked around her fiercely. You already are. That night, silence stretched heavy between them, though his touch never left her hand. Eleanor realized this wasn't simply about bravery. It wasn't only about facing the world but about facing herself, the part that had always believed she was never enough, never extraordinary, never meant for more. Olivia had weaponized that fear, the world echoed it, but Adrien defied it with his every breath. The question rising in Eleanor's chest was no longer could she endure this storm? But could she finally believe she deserved to stand in the light beside him? For the first time, she began to wonder if survival wasn't the answer after all. Maybe the answer was learning to live out loud. The storm did not relent. By the second week after Adrien's revelation, the world roared with a kind of fever Eleanor had never imagined. She was no longer faceless. She was dissected, her childhood, her lack of pedigree, her failure to measure up. Every day brought a new wave. Critics cast her as unworthy, tabloids titled her the billionaire's burden, and social media spat accusations as though she'd stolen an empire with a single vow. By Thursday she could barely eat. Every knock at the townhouse door felt like an intrusion, every headline another wound. Adrien remained steadfast, fighting board wars, threatening lawsuits, countering Olivia's sabotage, but she felt herself shrinking, invisible in another way, not hidden but erased beneath their image of her. It came to a breaking point the night Eleanor decided to step outside again. The townhouse walls suffocated her, each room echoing with silence louder than ridicule. She told herself a short walk would help her breathe. She wore no gown this time, only jeans, a coat pulled tight, hair tucked beneath a wool cap. But it didn't matter. They were waiting. The street corner swarmed with cameras. A reporter lunged forward, microphone stabbing toward her. Mrs. Blackwood, is it true you trapped him into marrying you? Another voice, crueler, how much money are you costing Hale Global? The questions poured like acid, strangers screaming accusations she couldn't even process. She froze, chest collapsing. Then came the sharpest cut. Someone in the crowd called her a parasite. Her vision blurred. She stumbled back, panic gnawing her lungs, until security pushed in, dragging her from the crowd. By the time she slipped back through the townhouse doors, Eleanor collapsed to the floor, shaking violently with sobs she could not control. Adrien found her minutes later, summoned by the security call. He dropped to his knees, gathering her face in his hands, fury quaking through every line of him. What happened? They hate me, Eleanor gasped. Everywhere. Every face, every voice, it's poison. Adrien, I can't do this. I'm drowning. His eyes blazed, but softer grief lay beneath. And yet here you are, still breathing, still fighting. That's strength. No, she cried. This isn't strength. This is humiliation. I'm tearing your empire apart. He took her trembling hands, voice dropping to a vow. Listen to me. I will not trade you for harmony. Let them scream. Let them choke. My line is drawn. You are my wife. Any man who cannot accept that is not worthy of my empire. Her sobs slowed at the weight of his words. But even as his conviction steadied her for a heartbeat, despair still gnawed at her ribs. The next morning, Adrien faced his board again. Eleanor wasn't there, but whispers filtered back quickly. Olivia Marquette had arrived armed with her final weapon. She accused Adrien of breaching fiduciary duty, demanded his resignation, and presented forged documents linking Eleanor's presence to insider misallocation. Theatrics. Designed to humiliate. Adrien listened in silence. Then he stood, gaze sweeping the entire board of men and women wavering between greed and loyalty. My marriage is not a liability, he said firmly. And if you believe the word of a bitter woman over the man who built this empire, then perhaps you deserve to see me walk away. Gasps erupted. Olivia smirked. Is that a threat, Adrien? It's a promise, he snapped. I don't need this chair to be powerful, but you need me in this chair to survive. Decide carefully. Silence fell like a war drum. Slowly, one by one, members shifted, choosing him. Olivia's smirk faltered. She had overplayed her hand, and Adrien had revealed the truth. His empire rested not just on wealth, but on loyalty to his name. Still, Olivia did not retreat. That evening, she delivered her desperation in person. Eleanor was alone when Olivia arrived, slipping into the townhouse through manipulation of a careless doorman. Eleanor turned, startled, heart lurching when she found the woman standing in the living room as though she owned it. You should leave, Eleanor whispered. Olivia's gaze traveled coldly over the modest furnishings, landing cruelly back on Eleanor. So this is where he hides you. Pathetic. Eleanor's breath shook, but she lifted her chin. Why are you here? To warn you, Olivia purred. This ends one of two ways. You leave him now or you'll be destroyed with him. The world doesn't forgive nobodies pretending to be queens. Eleanor's hands clenched at her sides. I'm not pretending. Olivia stepped closer, venom in every word. Yes, you are. You're a ghost who wandered into a throne. And when he tires of your trembling, you'll vanish as quickly as you appeared. But me. Her smile was razor sharp. I'm permanent. I'm legacy. When the tide turns, and it will, I'll still be standing. You won't. Eleanor's pulse thrummed wildly, fear twisting, but somewhere beneath, something shifted. Anger stirred, raw and unfamiliar. Before she could speak, footsteps thundered up the stairs. Adrien burst in, fury radiating like stormlight. His voice was deadly calm. Olivia. You've trespassed for the last time. Olivia's smirk wavered. Just giving your little project some perspective. Adrien moved between them, shielding Eleanor, his presence massive and immovable. She's not a project. She's my wife. And if you dare step within 100 yards of her again, I'll dismantle everything you depend on to breathe in this city. For the first time, Olivia faltered, eyes flashing not with victory but with fear suppressed deep. She hissed, matching his glare. You'll regret this when the empire collapses beneath her weight. Then she left, her heels striking marble like retreating gunfire. Silence remained. Eleanor's breath shook, tears springing hot. Adrien turned instantly, cupping her face. Did she hurt you? Eleanor shook her head weakly. No. But she tried. His hand pressed firm at her cheek. She won't again. The fierceness in his eyes steadied something inside her. For the first time, Eleanor felt Olivia's words not as chains but as sparks igniting something new, anger, resilience, even pride. Later that night, lying in Adrien's arms, she whispered the truth aloud. She called me a ghost. Maybe I was. But I don't want to be any more. Adrien kissed her hair softly. Then don't be. Choose the light, Eleanor. Stand in it. Not for me, for you. Her chest ached with both fear and sudden clarity. Perhaps this was the fight she had been avoiding, not the world's hatred, but her own refusal to believe she deserved more than shadows. That night, Eleanor decided quietly, the ghost would die, and something stronger would rise. The morning after Olivia's intrusion, The city buzzed with fresh speculation. Headlines screamed about whispers of board turmoil, about Adrien's refusal to back down, about Eleanor's very existence. But inside the townhouse, silence reigned. Eleanor sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of tea gone cold, her fingers tracing the rim. For years she had lived in two states, hidden or hunted. First, hidden in the warmth of Adrien's protection, then hunted by the world's greed. But now, after Olivia's poison, she understood something for the first time. Neither state defined her. She had been allowing others, Olivia, journalists, even Adrien sometimes, to do the speaking for her. But what if she spoke for herself? Adrien came in from another sleepless night of warring at his office. His shoulders were heavy, but his eyes softened the moment they found her. "Eleanor," he said gently, "you don't have to carry their venom." She lifted her gaze to him, steady but trembling. "I do. Not because it's true, but because if I never answer it, it becomes my silence." He studied her, chest rising slowly, as though realizing she was no longer the frightened woman clinging only to his shield. She was ready to stand beside him, not behind him. "What are you saying?" he asked quietly. "I need to speak," she whispered. "Not just you at podiums. Not just your vows. Mine too. To look the world in the eye and tell them who I am. Not a nobody. Not a burden. But your wife, and more than that, my own person." For a long moment, silence passed between them, thick and electric. Then Adrien leaned forward, pressed his lips to her knuckles and nodded once. "Then we do it together." The opportunity came faster than either expected. Olivia, furious at failing to break Adrien inside the boardroom, staged another strike. Her allies leaked another smear, implying Eleanor had manipulated Adrien into marriage. Rumors of blackmail, falsified pregnancy, even fraud. It was outrageous, absurd, and yet the stories flew across the globe. For once, instead of trembling, Eleanor burned. That evening, Adrien prepared to call yet another press meeting, but Eleanor stopped him. "This time," she told him softly but firmly, "let me speak." His eyes sharpened. "You're sure?" "Yes," she whispered, voice quaking but resolved. "If Olivia brands me as silence, then silence is surrender. I won't give her that." The next day the stage was set. The atrium once again filled with flashing cameras, with journalists smirking as though circling for easy prey. Adrien walked to the podium as expected, tall, commanding, yet shockingly he stepped aside. "Today," he announced, "will not be my voice. It will be hers." Gasps rippled. Cameras swung. And then Eleanor stepped forward, her knees trembled, breath tight, but she lowered her hands on the microphone and met their eyes. Hundreds of eyes. The world's gaze finally directly on her. "My name is Eleanor Blackwood," she began, her voice fragile but clear. Cameras clicked wildly, her own reflection caught on monitors flanking the hall. "Some of you have called me invisible. Some of you have called me unworthy, weak, or opportunistic. Let me tell you the truth, I did not choose wealth. I chose Adrien." Long before podiums, long before cameras, there was a man and a woman, standing in a kitchen, choosing each other. Every day since then we've kept choosing. Her throat constricted, but she pushed through, voice steadier now. "Yes, I was ordinary. I did not come from legacy or riches. But isn't that the point? Love is not a contract drafted by shareholders. It is not dictated by envy or pedigree. It is a promise. And mine is here, beside my husband." She turned ever so slightly toward Adrien. Not behind him. Beside him. Silence held the room. Reporters gawked, flashes slowed, words stalled. For once no one interrupted. Eleanor inhaled deeply, finishing softly, "So they can call me plain or weak or not enough. But I know the truth. My name is Eleanor Blackwood and I am his wife. And I will no longer be anyone's secret." The words landed heavier than any headline. For a breathless moment the cameras didn't matter. Only the stillness of truth in the air. Adrien stepped forward then, sliding his hand into hers, standing tall at her side. "You've heard her," he said simply. "Believe what you want. But now you know her name. And nothing you print will ever erase it." The conference dissolved in chaos, but a different kind of chaos this time. Not derision, not venom, but debate, speculation, frenzy over Eleanor's defiance. For the first time, her own words entered the bloodstream. That night, back in the townhouse, Eleanor collapsed into Adrien's arms, drained but alive in ways she had never felt. Her heart thundered as he whispered against her temple, "You were unstoppable." "I was terrified," she admitted. "And still unstoppable," he countered with a faint smile. Within days, Olivia's empire of lies began to collapse. The falsified documents were traced back to her. Media outlets began spinning retractions, and whispers swirled of fraud charges. Where once she smirked in silk gowns, Olivia now retreated behind shut doors, her venom devouring only herself. Meanwhile, public sentiment shifted. Some still sneered at Eleanor, yes. But others began to admire her, ordinary woman standing at podiums with extraordinary courage. Sympathy grew, curiosity softened, respect bloomed. By the end of the month, Adrien stood firmer than ever at Hale Global's helm, investor confidence steadying again. More importantly, Eleanor no longer drifted as a shadow. Wherever Adrien walked, she walked too, not as burden, not as liability, but as equal. On a crisp evening weeks later, Adrien brought her to the roof of the headquarters. Cities sprawled glittering beneath them like galaxies. He wrapped a coat around her shoulders, pressing close as the hum of life stirred below. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. She turned to meet his eyes, steady now with the resolve she had fought to find. "Not at all. I only regret how long I lived thinking I had to hide." He smiled softly, rare and genuine, the kind of smile he never showed cameras. "Then let's keep living. Out loud. Together." She leaned into him, gaze drifting toward the horizon. For the first time since their marriage began, she felt the world no longer crushing her, because she had faced it, spoken to it, and endured it. Adrien had chosen her. But more importantly, she had finally chosen herself. The billionaire's secret wife was secret no longer. She was simply Eleanor Blackwood, loved, seen, unashamed. And that was everything.